Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday night Township of Lopatcong Planning Board meeting, November 26, 2024. Would everybody please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the oath of allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided indicating the time and place of the meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by advertising notice in the Star Ledger and the Express Times and by posting a copy on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Roll call.
Yes. Members Coyle?
Here.
Coy?
Here.
George? Melendez?
Here.
Polito?
Here.
Weeks?
Here.
Vice Chairwoman DeLeo?
Here.
Chairman Sampson?
Here. All right, for the old business, the approval of the minutes from the September 25th meeting. Everybody get a copy of those? Get in the email, everybody get a copy? Anybody have any questions, comments? Nothing? All right. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Okay, so business, we have bridge acquisitions, 80 Strikers Road, Block 99, Lot 6. Needs a 19-month extension.
Let the record reflect that member George arrived at 7:03.
Sir, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, board professionals. My name is Tim Arch. I'm an attorney licensed in the state of New Jersey. I'm here representing Bridge Acquisitions. This is a simple extension request. You've probably seen these a number of times on the board. Approvals, when you get approvals at this board level, there are lots of outside agency approvals that you have to pursue as well. And sometimes there can be some delays in getting those outside agency approvals. And so it's common to come back and ask for extensions of those time periods. I did provide a letter that I think all the board members have that's dated September 30th that sort of outlines all the steps that we've been going through since we received our approvals back in 2022. The largest delay was because of Warren County, or because of negotiations with Warren County. It took 19 months from the time that we actually applied to the time that we actually got our approval from Warren County. And as you may realize, that there's sort of a compounding effect of those delays. So if you're still waiting on approval from one agency, it can hold up approvals from other agencies, and it kind of has a snowball effect. In any event, we believe that we meet all the criteria under the MLUO to get those extensions, especially because of the delay on Warren County. I do have potentially a couple witnesses if the board feels it necessary to ask any further questions or needs any elaboration on anything that I indicated in my letter. But I know it's close to Thanksgiving. I know that we're the only thing on the agenda tonight, and so I'll certainly leave it up to the board if there needs to be anything beyond what was submitted in the letter. So I'll turn it over to the board if there's any questions.
What I took from the letter is that it was mostly Highlands. Is that the biggest?
It's a combination of things. I can tell you that the biggest single delay from the period of time of filing to the time that we actually got an approval was Warren County, but these are all going concurrently, and they all have effects on one another as well. So yeah, there is a delay, as indicated in the letter, for Highlands as well. Take your pick. I mean, it's essentially, there's lots of different outside agencies that have to be coordinated.
Okay.
I have some questions.
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this timeline from the Warren County Planning Board. I see an incompleteness letter, and 2 disapprovals. Why was it disapproved?
I can certainly turn that over to Mr. Skapanitz. He's our engineer from Dynamic. What I can tell you just in general is that much like with planning board completeness determinations, when you initially file, they do a review, they issue an incompleteness letter. If you file from there as well, they can issue a additional disapproval letter and ask for resubmissions of additional information and additional materials. One of the things I will say with Warren County was there was significant off-site contributions that they were looking for, and I think that also sort of played a part in their initial analysis of this. If you'll find at the one of the things that they added on, or that was an additional condition of the approval, was a developer's agreement that had multiple off-site contributions, off-site construction that had to be done for things completely unrelated to our, essentially to our project. Related in the sense that the county felt as though there would be an impact, and so therefore they're allowed to get off-site contributions, but not anything that was on our site in particular. I don't know if that answers your question, or if if you want Mr. Skapanitz to come up and give any more detailed information.
I have a question, because you're saying that Warren County held everything up, but I was looking here at all the different submissions, and their approval was like within 2 to 3 weeks, or their incompleteness, their disapproval, everything was like pretty fast. I don't feel where they held anything up.
Correct. It's not that Warren County's approval held up those other approvals that we got beforehand, but there's all sorts of things that have to occur after Warren County gives their approval, and those things cannot happen until we get that. We're still not at the point where we can put a shovel in the ground. So there's still other additional things that have to be done before we can get to the point where we can actually pull a permit. But some of those aspects can't be done concurrently with the county because they're dependent on having that county. There's a lot of contractual provisions that are essentially, you need to have final approval from certain outside agencies before you can really pursue those at all. And so, again, it's a snowballing effect, it's a compounding effect.
I just don't see where the county held it up, because I think they responded pretty fast. That's just what I see.
Come on up.
Well, like I said, Mr. Skapanitz from Dynamic Engineering, I think he can add some more.
Yeah, I can clarify, and for the record, Brett Skapanetz, Dynamic Engineering Consultant, so is the engineer of record on the plans.
If I can, I believe he does need to be sworn in.
Well, our attorney's not here, so.
Traffic.
Oh, okay.
So, but you were sworn.
I was sworn, and my licenses are still current, so.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, Mr. Arch is correct. I mean, there are different agencies. I'll take soil conservation, for example. It's an easy one. And if you look, it's one of the easiest ones and one of the quickest ones that we were able to get an approval for. But if you look at the dates, we filed every agency pretty much simultaneously. There really wasn't a large gap at all between all of them. Now, you can look at further down the line, you can look at NJDEP TWA, okay? And you can see how, in that one, for example, though, it was filed a little bit later, and it took a little while for that one to come in. That's one of those that is dependent, however, on us not only getting site plan approval, but then we have to go through, once we get site plan approval, we need to go through then the sign-off process for a TWA application. That can't happen until we get site plan approval, right? So technically, that application can get filed to the DEP for them to approve it until we've gone through local approval process. Whereas Soil Conservation District, the county, Highlands, we can start that simultaneously with filing with the town, which is generally what we did. When it came to the county, however, and I've been working for 30 years, I've made dozens of applications to Warren County in various different capacities. And you file the first time, and they did exactly what they did here. The disapproval letter is not really a disapproval. It's written that way, legal speak. Sorry, Mr. Arch, but it's an incompleteness letter. And if we can go back to those letters, they're basically saying, look, we need additional information, just as he said. And they're saying, we're not going to complete our review, and you're done until you send us this additional information. And if you look at the dates in which they issued their disapproval letter or incompleteness, we've generally filed right away. There might be a month or two span, but that was a result of addressing their comments, addressing their concerns that were in that letter that they issued and said we need to get back to them with more information. And ultimately that led to, honestly, once we got to the beginning, see, around 2023 in the mid 2023, that's where we really started to hit, I'll say, major delay then with the county, because that's when we were getting in the thick of discussions about what was going in the developer's agreement and the outside off-site improvements. For example, there's work that to be done at the intersection of Stryker and
519.
519, right. So Stryker and 519, the discussion as to what was going to happen with the intersection on number one, finding out where the right-of-way was, whose responsibility was going to be to do it, how the money was going to be put up, because we know that across the street from our project, money was put up by that developer to do just what we're talking about, the intersection improvements. So there was discussion about how that money was going to be used. Then there was further discussion about what we could do about the canal, since we're up against the canal, and what we can do to cross, get that pathway safer to go from one side of Stryker to the other. So there was talk about what we could do for the design of a pedestrian crossing. Then they said, well, wait a minute, further down, further interior to your site, to the, I'll call it to the east along the canal, there was an old bridge. So there was an old connection and a pathway that actually, if you continue along the canal, it leads back out to 519. So further there, they know there's a connect, there is a crossing, and they said, well, we want a up to date. We want you to build a crossing there. And we talked about, well, wait a minute, is that really our responsibility? It's off our site. And ultimately, it came down to putting up money for a brand new pedestrian bridge. That money that was put up already by my client in order to facilitate the construction of that. So there was a lot of back and forth, and then ultimately the language between lawyers as far as what was written into the agreement itself. So there was a lot going on there between the county, and if you look in that period of time. What's that?
They're all important issues.
Oh, no, absolutely, but it takes time. And ultimately going back and forth between my client, we're dealing with engineering, myself and engineering, they're writing up the comment, but then ultimately it's got to go up the chain of command in the county as well. So if you look in when that was occurring, that's where you see there were some larger gaps in time and response from the county, because ultimately we filed information and we waited for them a month or two, maybe 3 months before them to get back to us with comments on the developer's agreement. So ultimately that's what led to 19 months from the time we filed to the time we got our ultimate approval.
That's why the Greenwich development that's supposed to go up contacted me and said that there's supposed to be this traffic study. So what you're alluding to is the county is seeing all these warehouses coming up and how they're trying to figure out what's happening all together. Because the Greenwich development did contact me and trying to figure out when Phillipsburg put up their warehouses, Cubes is going up in Alpha. So it's like, a lot going on.
Well, the county, absolutely, the county did their job. The county did their research. They reviewed it. That's why they took
traffic study, basically.
partially, but obviously there's the offsite stuff as well. So it was a combination of all that. So,
Yeah, so the Greenwich development is, the offsite development is hindering your development over here, basically.
No. The offsite, well, when you say the offsite, the offsite is basically, again, the county saying, we know there's, to your point, they know that there was other stuff going on, and you're part of that, of the work, you're part of the development that's happening in the area. We want to make sure that what's going on at that intersection, is right. So across the street, put up an amount of money. We want you to put up essentially the balance, and ultimately the county's going to do a design, and it's going to be paid for out of the funds from my client from across the street.
I have a question.
Yep.
And it's in two parts, so please listen.
Yep.
You're asking for 19 months extension, okay? Extension from when? And how long a period is that? And why, the thing that threw me for a loop, a year and 7 months? What is the 7 months about? Most people go 6 months, a year. Some 7 just doesn't quite fit a mold of something to me.
So I
So
can
I'm
answer,
asking.
yeah, so I can answer that. So the MLUL, there's actually two types of extensions in the municipal land use law. One is a mandatory extension for 1 year, and that's on the basis of you're pursuing your outside agency approvals, and you can't get permits until you get those outside agency approvals. There's a separate provision in the MLUL that allows the board, in their discretion, to grant beyond that 1 year, actually up to, I believe, 5 years before you then have to renotice. And that 1 year, by the way, extension can be applied for 3 separate times on 3 separate occasions, so it's up to 3 years. The reason that we're asking for the 19 is simply, we took what was the largest outside agency delay, which was when we filed Warren County to when we got our approval from Warren County, and that was 19 months. So that's why we asked for the 19-month extension, because that's what we can point to directly to say, this was when we filed, this was how long it took to get that approval, and so we think that it's reasonable and justifiable to say that's the time that it took for that. A lot of people, I will say, a lot of applicants will come up and will say, we need 2 years, we need 3 years. In your discretion, please give us, again, up to 5 years without potentially notice. We wanted to couch this in the timeline that we had, so that we could show that to
I
you.
understand. You still haven't told me the date that it started from, the 19th, in your discussion.
I think it's December 29th.
Correct, yeah, so it's
That's
the end of
what
this
I
year.
needed to know.
Correct, it's the end of this year that it would be.
The other question I have is, why are you not moving forward on everything else? You know, when I do projects, I don't stagnate on one little thing. I move on 5 different things, all right, so that all things are moving, all right? And the statement you made was nothing moved because Warren County didn't move. Okay, so have you been waiting for one, and this is part of my discussion, this decision, have you been waiting for one person to make a move and stagnating on everybody else?
Well, you can see that
It's a yes or no question, I don't want to say, I'd like to hear a yes or no.
we certainly weren't stagnating on everything else. Obviously, we tried to file as many things and pursue as many things concurrently as we can. Like I said, though, until you solidify approvals from certain outside agencies, there are certain other steps that you can't take. And that's what I meant by it has a compounding effect, because at the end of the day, any delay at one point is going to start to build up on the other side.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have some comments to ask. So was there anything in the developer's agreement that the board needs to see or know about? Has that been, because I don't think the board has gotten an approved developer's agreement, or at least I don't think our office has seen it.
So I don't believe, well, there's nothing in the county developers agreement that affects the township or the township. There's a separate township developers agreement.
Right.
Yes. So I believe there will be a copy of that executed developers agreement that will be provided, but nothing pertaining to that agreement is anything that affects the township's approval or the township's developers agreement.
Okay, all right. So you didn't have to update any plans or anything like that for, by the way, I'm Marie Ruffey with Colliers Engineering. I'm filling in for Adam, so I'm not Adam, but just for the record.
Did something different with there.
It just changed a little bit.
With respect to the plans,
Yeah.
as we went through the county comments and addressed those, the final set that Adam got, he issued us a comment email in May
Yes.
that basically said, you're good, I'm fine with the plans. There's just a few things such as, the developer's agreement, bonds, pre-con, there was a couple other things that needed to be provided, and that, we're this close to being able to get in the door. But as far as the plans are concerned, they were up to date with respect to the county comments,
Okay.
the ones that he approved.
Okay. So, and there were some things that as we were looking over the incompleteness letter from Warren County, along the way, just looking at the history of it, it looked like maybe there were some changes that would have been made to some of the stormwater or downstream dams. Is there anything that was changed on that needs to come back and for us to review?
No. You've reviewed it all already.
Okay. All right. All right. So the downstream check dam, everything's okay. We've seen all of that.
We've seen all of that.
Okay. Nothing changed after
Nothing
that.
changed.
None of the stormwater facilities
All-
changed anything on the
Yep,
plans.
all that, yep, you were, and everything that went to the county ultimately came to you, and you're that final okay by Adam that the plans were good. contains everything that the county has.
Okay, so if we were to put a stipulation in that on any approval, should the board approve this, would you be okay with submitting revised plans, should there be any revised plans because of any of the approvals that you had?
Yeah, there's no revised plan, so again,
I'm just making sure I'm checking all the boxes here.
Yeah,
that would be,
I think that would be
fine, because I think
Yeah.
I think that's already a condition of the ultimate township approval, is that any revisions have to go to it anyway. So yes, we would certainly agree to it. I think we would have to. I mean, we already have agreed to it.
I actually do have one question, and it might be more of an internal question than a question to these guys, but as ordinances change, for example, with the MS4 application for tree management, if this project isn't going to begin, as they start, will they have to comply with the changes to the ordinance for trees and tree replacement?
That's a good point, and I think that we just, DEP changed the stormwater regulations, is that gonna have?
Well, it's not so much to have anything to do with the DEP's regulations. What the applicant is seeking tonight is simply an extension of the approvals that were granted by this board against from zoning changes, not necessarily all regulation changes.
This is an ordinance change that I'm asking about.
Zoning changes.
Okay. I don't know if
Okay.
that's.
So what this applicant has actually obtained in the past was both preliminary and separately final site plan approval with variance relief to actually do a project that is a use. What the application is tonight is to say, yes, the zoning and the land use regulations that they were approved under are not going to change for them.
Okay.
So they're still protected.
Okay, but so again, my question is more internal than to them. If our ordinance for tree replacement changes and it has an impact on them because they've already been previously approved, do they then have to comply going forward as they start the construction? I'm not sure I'm clear on how that actually.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure either. What
Okay.
this normally does is protect them from zone changes.
Okay, and this is not a zoning.
Their approval remains no matter what. Whether or not there's a zone change and whether or not they're able to get a building permit is a completely different issue. The only thing that the application is before the board tonight is to say that they're further protected from zone changes.
Okay.
They can still, regardless of whether or not the board says yes or no, if there's not an intervening zone change, they can still apply for their building permits and move ahead.
And all
As long as they comply
ordinances-
with the, otherwise comply with local ordinances.
And ordinances aren't necessarily zoning ordinances?
Nope.
Okay, that was the clarification I needed, thank you.
Why do you feel you need 19 months?
It's okay.
Why not a year? Why not 6 months? I mean, what meat and potatoes is telling you that you need to go 19 months?
Well, not that we don't want to be back here in front of you if we need to ask for a further extension. So obviously, the 19 months, again, I thought is justified under the time it took for the application and to get the approval. So I thought that was a reasonable time period to put forth. What you're asking is how long until we can get a shovel in the ground. We'd like to say that we can get a shovel in the ground hopefully within the next 6 months, but I can't guarantee that. And if it was only 6 months or if it was only a year, and we'd have to come back before this board and we would be in the same essentially situation, we would just be updating you with more information. One thing I can say is that under the MLUL, the non-discretionary time is the year. The discretionary time is the period of time after the fact. We have every intention to not use the entire 19 months if we can help it. But you probably know as well as I do, there's unforeseen things that can come up that can cause additional delays. We would, I would not be doing my job if I didn't ask for what I thought was a reasonable amount of time. And again, the reasonable amount of time in the MLUL is based on what the time of any sort of action for getting those outside agency approvals is. It's not based on how much future time you feel is necessary to complete the project. So that's why we chose that amount of time.
I don't disagree with what council just said. I don't disagree with what council just said.
Is there any legal reason that we shouldn't, grant this?
Legally, I don't think that there is a reason. I think that you're going to have to open up public for public comment, but the applicant is well within their rights to actually seek this extension. I think they put forth a reasonable basis for the extension. Again, the extension is not an extension of an approval. The approval does not expire. The extension simply allows the developer to rely on the approval not to be changed or be thwarted by a zone change in the future. That's all it does. And short of a zone change, they're still allowed to proceed.
And they could come in after the 19 months and ask for another extension.
They could.
Right.
Yeah, nothing prohibits them from doing that.
Or they could start work.
They could.
Okay. Everybody satisfied? So, open it up for public comments. There's a bet you good?
Oh, we had a
Come on,
good
Jeff.
Okay. All right, so the vote, are we gonna put a condition on the approval that we receive the off-site? Is that what we talked about, the
Developers agreement.
developers
The developers
agreement?
agreement with the county. We haven't seen the final approval of that, the finalized version of the developers agreement with the county. We saw a draft of it, but I don't know, it's not executed.
What I will say is that we would have to provide that prior to getting building permits anyway. That is a condition of the county approval that your building department would have, or your zoning department would have to check off as being completed before we could even apply for permits. So it's already a condition that we have to provide that before we can pull any building permits. So, I mean, if that wants to be reiterated here tonight, I don't think there's any harm in doing that, but it's already a condition that we have. We can't hide the county's developers agreement. It doesn't work that way.
Okay. And Colliers has the latest revision, they've approved the latest revision, there's no surprises, there's no...
That's my understanding, according to Mr. Wisniewski, is that the final revision had been okayed. But obviously, we will certainly be in contact with Colliers going forward as well, and they can certainly request any additional plans or anything else that needs to be provided.
Okay.
I have one more question. For your thing here, James, okay, it's legal, it's blah, 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 blah. Okay. Do you feel that you will slow down if we go with the 19 months? As your development starts, do you feel that you won't push as hard to accomplish the same thing as if you had 6 months or 12 months or anything? Do you feel that you will slow down things?
Well, do we want to swear another witness in? We can swear Mr. Jeff Malonick in. I can tell you, we are going full speed ahead, and securing this extension, if we secure this extension, is going to put the project into light speed, quite frankly, because we're coming up against this deadline. It is not going to act as a delaying force. It's going to be the kick in the butt that the project actually needs at this point.
That's what I didn't want. I didn't want it to slow down to nothing.
No, it will have the exact opposite. I can guarantee you that.
And I just want to make sure that the record's clear. They're not getting an extension of an approval.
Correct.
Okay. Their approval still
It's
stands.
already there.
Right.
what they're applying for is an extension to prevent them from being subject to a zone change, which actually already occurred.
Right.
But they have an approval in place. So there was a zone change, that's still under litigation, as far as I know.
I believe so.
But
No.
they're simply seeking to have the approval that they've received be exempt from any type of zone change.
Just changes.
Yes, but it has no effect on the actual approval itself.
Is there any point that, that this thing can go on for 5, 6, 7 years? That would change anything?
Theoretically, yes, but
The zoning, everything would change so much. If we gave them so many years, time span, and things change, does it affect our township in a way that the zone gives them a grace and takes everybody else out?
That would be a conversation that we would have 19 months from now, I think.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, and I agree with James. I mean, what you're saying, and I do agree, but I'm trying to protect the whole town, not just one conglomerate,
Yeah.
So.
And I will say that's part of the reason we're asking 19. We're not asking for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. I can tell you that I've been in front of boards where this is the third time coming up and saying we need another year, and boards will deny it, because if you come up a bunch of different times, the boards have that ability to rein in and control it. So in 19 months, you will absolutely, if we have not done what we are saying that we would do, you'll have a chance to hold our feet to the fire.
Thank you.
Okay. Would somebody like to make a motion to grant a 19-month extension to bridge acquisitions? Would somebody like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
One second.
I'll run for that. Members Coyle,
Yes.
Boyd,
I guess.
I guess.
That'd be a yes.
Melendez,
Yes.
Polito,
No.
Weeks,
No.
Vice Chairwoman DeLeo,
Yes.
Chairman Sampson.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why would like, oh.
Did I forget you?
Yes.
Oh, I had to close it out.
Oh, no, dude.
We're in here.
Did I do something wrong? You were late.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And a personal thank you to you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
What did I do wrong? She's so mad at
Be
me.
on time next time.
Look, I was buying a car. You know how
Oh,
long it
that's
takes to
the
get through the finance guy? I'm pretty impressed I made it here only 3 minutes late.
That's pretty good. I
I'm like,
need
what? I gotta go. I gotta play with cars.
I get antsy after the first hour.